So that was a fantastic speech by Erickson Chan. We've been phone buddies for a long time, so it was great to actually meet him in person today. So next up, we have over the past 10 years, Fintech has changed the business, technology, and money sectors beyond recognition. Innovators, disruptors, and dreamers have managed to bring their ideas from startups to unicorns have driven this change. Others have challenged the financial big boys so successfully that they are preparing for IPOs. To make sense of the changes we have witnessed over the past 10 years and to explore where this journey might take us next, I'd like to introduce one of the great survivors in the P2P lending industry in China, the founder of one of China's great fintech unicorns, Denrong's Htite.
Good morning. It's a great pleasure to be here. My name is Htite. Just a quick introduction. I spent the last 23 years of my life working with technology in finance. The first 13 years, I was building software for large banks and financial institutions out of Oracle. 2007, we started Lending Club. 5.5 years into it, I moved to China and started Denrong. This experience let me understand closely what finance is about and how technology and finance can coexist together. I travel a lot, and I take that Shanghai-Beijing flight all the time, or Hong Kong, Shanghai. And every time people ask me, what do you do? I say, Fintech. They suddenly want to talk to me. And they want to ask me every question there is to ask. So needless to say, that Fintech as a subject is very hot. And everybody has an opinion. But at the beginning, my conversations with them were a little bit unorganized, until I got to the point where I start to ask people two questions. So I asked the first question, do you think in the next 5 years, technology will transform the way we do finance? 99% of the time, people will say, absolutely. They believe in it in a religious way. Then I asked them, exactly in 5 years, can you describe to me how finance is going to be? And they find it very challenging. So if you think about it, it's exactly the same question. How could you, on one hand, be so sure that technology is going to change finance, but you don't know how is it going to happen? So this is the state of the industry today. It's not decided by the people that build the technology or the people that run the business. This is how the majority of customers are thinking about it. They know it's coming, but they don't know how it's going to look like. So we are celebrating this year 10 years since the first time somebody used the word fintech. So many things went super well. I think to summarize everything that went well is how we are able to take a traditional industry and look at every aspect of the business and reduce it dramatically from a point of view of cost. And because we were able to do that, we are able to offer products to people that were unable to get them before because the cost that was taking traditional industry, traditional practitioner of this industry was just too high. We did a lot of things. We originated hundreds of billions of dollars worldwide, from the US to China to Africa to Europe. So we are everywhere. We also proved that one of the questions that were asked at the beginning, do you really know how to do risk management? Majority of companies are doing very well in terms of risk management. They are either on par with the market or even beating it. But the interesting part is that their cost of operating is much lower than the traditional business. So these are the things that went very well. So what didn't? The business model is what is still very challenging. So from all type of ways, you have different entrepreneurs answering, how am I going to use technology in fintech, in finance to be able to create value? So I put them into extremes. A bank versus a company that just wants to focus on technology. So we have some people 10 years ago coming up and saying, oh, game over for the bank. I am building a company, and I'm naming it No Bank because I'm going to replace the bank. That is really naive. That's not how you can transform an industry. Others came in and they said, this whole banking system, I don't believe in it. I'm going to create a new financial order. I'm going to call it Bitcoin. So for disclosure, I love blockchain. I hate Bitcoin. I don't think it serves anything that that person that is trying to get a loan will get. So I'm challenging the value of Bitcoin for society. That's my concern. But I love the technology behind it. And I credit blockchain technology to the fact that we have Bitcoin today. So there is a rainbow of business models. We choose to focus on online marketplace. And we choose to focus on online marketplace because you are enough in the finance industry and enough in the technology. There are some customers, or some companies that said, I'm just going to be a technology company offering service to everyone. Then you are competing with outsourcing companies. Or I'm just going to offer leads. So you are competing with online marketing companies. So you really have to balance between how relevant you are and how can you scale while in compliance with regulations. So we have this discussion about business models, but there are a few things that fundamentally are not going to change. Market goes up, market goes down. These things never change. Number one is data. So I'm not going to be here repeating what 10 people before me said. Data is important. We have a lot of data. We never had a lot of it. But I would like to pinpoint a few aspects of data. If you ask people today, which companies have the largest data in the world, they will say, oh, Facebook, Google, Alibaba. That's not true. Companies that have data today are institutions, are businesses. Just think about RISE, this conference itself. Each one of you to get in has to download an app. Have you noticed what they ask? Because they want to know which presentation you go to. So next year, they can do a better job organizing it. So all businesses have to use data. If you're not using data, you really don't have any advantage whatsoever. But if you take an industry like ours, using data is a survival question. It's not to make us better. So in 2007, traditional industry will look at a customer and they will just look at his FICO score, they will look at his debt-to-income ratio, but then a large part of society is excluded. Think about that lawyer or doctor or engineer just graduated. If they need money in their life, that's the time they really need it. So I have a degree, and I am participating in the economy, and I'm a good citizen. I still cannot satisfy the requirements of the bank. But then we start adding more and more sources. Your utility payments. It's extremely important for me to know whether or not you're a responsible person. Do you pay your utility bills on time? That's something about your character. It's very useful for me. And so on, and so on, and so on. Data has existed since a long time ago. What happened lately that made data so important is because we have developed 3 types of technologies. The technology to collect data, and all of you are using it right now. You're using your mobile phone. You can collect it. We have developed big processing machines that allows us to put a lot of data together and analyze it and make sense out of it, because data is most of the time unstructured. And more important, we have developed models and technology to distribute data. So companies like Diero can get data when the customer approves me to get that data. That whole protocol was enabled by technology. This is the breakthrough that allows us to become more a digitized society. So I said data, technology, and the third one is breakthroughs. I think everybody talks about blockchain. Is it hype, or is it really something interesting we should pay attention to? The issue here is everyone talks about it, but we don't have any successful application that shows the power of blockchain. The only one we have is Bitcoin. And I told you before, I really don't like it, and that's not an example for me. So what is the challenge that Bitcoin, or the challenge that the blockchain is trying to resolve? Trying to resolve the issue of trust. The way we solve the trust problem today is by investing in the brand. Basically, Implicitly, I'm telling you all the time, trust me, trust me, trust me. The World Cup is happening, you see my name there. That's me asking you, trust me. But today, in the new economy, I'd rather trust the guy that gives me data than the guy that showed me his brand. So if I go to Rio de Janeiro, I land at 2 a.m. in the morning, one of the most dangerous cities, and there is a yellow cab, and there is an Uber driver, I am taking the Uber driver because I know where he's going to take me. I know that he did 1,000 trips before, and I feel comfortable that I know something about him. So today, trust is data. But trust went through an evolution. So before, we were living in tribes and villages, trust was one-to-one. If you lie to me today, I'm going to catch you tomorrow. I know all of you by name. But then we became a little bit bigger, and we became cities. I can't know everybody in my city. So we need an infrastructure that translates trust from me to you. Think about how I can send you $100,000 is by instructing my bank to send it to your bank. So you trust your bank, I trust my bank. So it works if I'm sending you $100,000, but it doesn't work if I'm sending you $5. Infrastructure has reached its limits. What we want is what globalization is all about. I want to do business with all of you. I've never met you before. And that's the challenge, and that's the promise that blockchain is trying to resolve. So how is it going to do it? Definitely not what Uber did. Because that guy that works for Uber as a driver, if he changes his job and goes to Lyft, he's not going to transport his data with him. So he has to start from scratch again. So the ultimate problem to solve is the following. I have a certain level of reputation that I acquired over the last 10 years. I have an ID card. I have a certificate from my college. I have my bank statements. Every time I want to get service, I have to take it with me and I have to show it to you. You have a very high cost to verify that everything is correct. And this process is very expensive, to the point that you will say, unless you're borrowing $1 million, I'm not going to waste time with you. What we would like to have is a network of blockchain machines, one for education, one for ID cards owned by the government, and so on, and so on, and so on. So if I want to show you my reputation, all I have to do is authorize you to access those networks. And you know that these networks, you cannot mess with them because they are based on this technology. You're not going to get this tomorrow. You're going to get this in 5 years or 10 years. You're going to get it when industry or industries start to adopt blockchain. So I have big hope for blockchain, but I don't think we're going to see it happening tomorrow. So Fintech 2.0, it's been 10 years. We're going into a new thing. I have some predictions. They're more like insight than prediction because they are short-term. So the first one is, and this is for the geeks out there, my kind of people, technology is becoming cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. Microservices, cloud, protocols like blockchain, and so on. So there will be standardized, and there is no real advantage or competition there. Then we're going to have industry service level, things where we focus on underwriting, things where we focus on customer experience. And on top of that, we're going to build big answers to big questions. How do we do compliance? How do we do convenience? How do we do affordability? And once we have this brick, we can put it in many different places. So to the point that we can build a unified architecture that everybody can use. So the competition is not about the rails anymore. It's what you put on top of the rails. This can be used by a small company, a big company. This can be used by the government. It can be used by everyone that is interested in offering contribution to the finance industry. The second prediction that I'm thinking of, we used to think that capital is king. I think that's becoming less and less relevant. Opportunity is king. When a borrower comes to us, we give him a loan, we have a one-time experience with him. Engagement with borrowers is going to increase. We're going to focus more and more on educating borrowers. We're going to tell them what does it mean to have creditworthiness. Like in the US, our sister company offer services like every month, I'll tell you what's your FICO score, whether you want to borrow or not, because you have financial plans in your head. You want to buy that house in 2 years. You better get your act together so you can save and get the best rate. So financial education on credit. There will be a lot of focus on this. There are some really interesting products out there. And the third one, and this is really, really important to me, finance is going to be for the masses. So far, the best way to make money out of finance is an arbitrage opportunity. I use my big brand. I convince people to give me cheap cost of capital. I turn around and I lend it. That's an arbitrage opportunity. I think more and more companies are going to be focusing on what I call the logistics of finance. How do I make that person, after I educate him, credit-worthy so I can place him in front of all of you? And that opportunity is unique. So we should fight for that opportunity. He should not be fighting for capital. If we are able to achieve this, finance is going to be very simple to explain, very simple to understand, and definitely very simple to regulate. So I always like to show this at the end of my presentation, because I have a lot of people that always challenge me, no, we're not going to transform. We're not going to transform. In the US, 25 years ago, there were two types of companies. Companies that offer energy, electricity company, or internet companies. At that time, there was no wireless. So an internet company has to drill holes in every house in the US to install the cables, while the electricity company had them for many, many years, and they refused to add another cable and add an extra service, internet service. So today, we have Comcast and we have giants like that should have been an electricity company because they already wired all of America before. And that, to me, is the biggest missed opportunity. I think many banks are managed by super smart people. They realize what's going on. And they realize this difference between the arbitrage opportunity versus the service and the logistics of finance. Thank you.